Happy holidays from Dr. BeeWell. I know that most of us associate the weather getting chilly with flu and cold season, but here at Dr. BeeWell, we call it bad sugar season. As Americans, we generally eat like shit. During this time of year, with the holiday and other related stresses, those horrible eating practices tend to get kicked into overdrive. We offer a solution in the form of full-spectrum RSO infused raw local honey because we shouldn't be walking around eating nerd rope all day. This holiday season, why not let the bees handle the heavy lifting that your sweet tooth demands, while adding a little giddy up to your mood and smoothing out the rough edges we all tend to find at holiday parties, gatherings, and events. So, from all of us in the Dr. BeeWell family to you and yours, we wish you a beautiful holiday season. And don't forget, Dr. BeeWell honey is the best cannabis stocking stuffer on the market. I think it's fair to say that most people know how vital strength training is for long-term health and fitness, but find it hard knowing where to start. I'm here to say that also included me, Dr. Steve. You want to make sure you're doing exercises correctly, you don't want to get hurt, and you have no idea how to structure a workout program to get the best results. I've been there. In fact, this is where I found myself a few months ago. That's where On Target Fitness comes in. At On Target, every client gets their own custom strength program, tons of individual attention in their unique small group format, and the common sense nutrition and health coaching necessary to make a lasting lifestyle upgrade. As a new member of On Target, I'm not only seeing major changes in my body, but also my overall quality of life. In the past, I've struggled with using proper form. Well, let me tell you, whether it's Coach Joe or Coach Ryan, they've got you covered with technique. Even movement patterns as simple as walking have improved since I've started. When I was working out by myself without a program, I was often lost and lacked the motivation to challenge myself. Not at On Target. The energy and support in the group dynamic is truly game-changing. I have so much fun every time I work out. If you're ready for lasting change, don't hesitate to schedule a complimentary strategy session at www.ontargetfit.com. During this session, you'll learn a lot, make a plan, and only move forward if it's right for your budget, schedule, and goals. I met with Coach Katie, and she was awesome. So please, if you need that giddy up back in your life, get on over to ontargetfit.com and schedule your session today. Welcome back. Today, we have an extra special treat for everybody. Today, it's a Saturday. We're in the studio. It's Veterans Day. It is Veterans Day today, right?
Today, yep.
Today, yep. It's Veterans Day today. So it's such a giddy up. My guest today, this gentleman, he, by trade, he is a lawyer. He's a cannabis lawyer. By heart, he is an advocate. He is a lover. He's a yogi. He's a seeker of wellness. He's one of the most articulate people that I have ever met. He constantly brings joy to conversations. He has some of the best perspective that I have recently seen in my relationships. And I'm so excited to get into it today. I'm so excited to have this guy on the show. My guest today is Gustav Stickley V.
Let's go. Nice.
What's up, Gus?
Thank you, Steve. You're too kind. I'm glad to be here. Big fan of Dr. BeeWell, but bigger fan of the mission that you have and that your company has. So
thank you so much, brother. It is it's an honor for it's. We talk about it when we first when you came in today you mentioned it, and I didn't even think about it, but we had met, and then within 6 hours of meeting, it was you got to come on the show, man.
Oh yeah,
you got to come on the show.
And we met at night, having breakfast in the morning. He did not sleep over.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah, exactly. We met at night. Met about 7 p.m. We're having breakfast. We're having breakfast the next day.
Yep.
That's how it's something cool that a lot of people, they don't, especially being an adult male. Sometimes it's hard for people to do that stuff.
Yep.
To we get in our own way, or we overthink things, and we're not allowed to have relationships with anybody. or it hinders relationships that we can have with people at least.
Yeah, and making friends as an adult is, I've found to be very similar to courting a significant other. And I think that makes people uncomfortable. Like, you shouldn't be going after friends in the way you would a lover, but it's like a lot of the same principles and they work well, you know? So like, I'm sitting at home, like, should I text them? Or maybe it's a little bit too soon, or, you know, can we get together? I don't know. I could go up to his place. I could stay over for a night, you know, whatever. You know, it's just, it's interesting how if you approach it that way, I think you have a lot more success, because I think that's the principles you create relationships on, is the one with a lover. But if you employ those principles with a friend, I think it higher the success rate. That's what I've done, and I've got some awesome guy and girlfriends. But
I love that, because like, you know, you were, I'm very much so like that too. I'm like full, like maybe I'm allowing myself to be like fully vulnerable, or like what, you know, maybe that's what it is. But but I want to put myself out there, and I want to be welcoming and friendly, and show people that, like, you know, we can live in a society where, you know, people can meet, and then maybe they can have a sleepover. Yeah. You know, because that's what
still real.
It was still real, exactly. Because that's you know, today's a beautiful Saturday, and you know, when Gus and I were first talking, we were going to do that. You know, he was going to bring his you know, his partner up, his significant other up, and they were going to stay the night, and it's like that. Like, just from a new friendship, you know, from people who'd only spent, like, you know, maybe a total of, like, you know, 6 hours together. Yep. You know, that's a really cool thing. Now, it's not going to end up happening, because there's, you know, some other things happen, and, you know, work and life and whatever, but like,
there's time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, man, there's time. And like, it's just really cool to you know, to allow stuff for like that to happen in relationships.
I think people get a little nervous if you allow yourself to be that vulnerable, then what, right? It's exposure, and I think it's a human reaction to try to close off to that stuff. But you have only found it to be rewarding. I have only found it to be rewarding, and you know, it's the way to do it. It's the way to do it.
It's yeah. We live like with like a lot of superficialness, and like just like because of technology, because of the world that we live in, and like everything. Everyone has like these barriers up, and they don't allow people to like truly see who they are. Maybe they're nervous. And it hinders, it makes like life less joyful. Yeah. You know, I've been making friends, like, you know, as an adult, just like you said, I think that's a cool way. Like I said, the guy who helps me articulate things. Yes. Like I've been approaching relationships, you know, with that same type of care that I would, you know, with a significant other. Should I text them? You know, is this a good time? You know, you have to have that type of care, and like intention. If you think that there's a you know, a vibration, a frequency when you meet somebody, and you say, oh, there's a vibe here, like, why not explore it? Why not go for it? You know, our gut, you know, our gut, you know, that feeling that we have is such a real thing. Mm-hmm. Like, we talk about it like it's like a pseudoscience, like our gut feelings are, you know, like there's a chemical reaction happening in your body that's telling you that, you know, that's connected to your consciousness, that's connected to that, you know, whatever scenario or, you know, other people's consciousness that's happening, and it's saying, this is good, you know, go towards it, you know, go towards this. That's what a gut feeling is.
That's a muscle to flex too, right? Like I trust my gut. You trust your gut. I didn't always trust my gut. Right. As I developed as a human being, my gut told me X, Y, and Z, and sometimes I followed it, sometimes I didn't. Maybe it was a good idea, maybe it wasn't. But now I know, I mean, it's my most harmonious piece of my body. If I'm feeling something, I'm going to go with it. And if I'm wrong, that's okay. My gut's been right enough. You know, it's an imperfect science, but, you know, you're not going to be too hard on it. And I think that comes with knowing yourself, right? Because then your gut's not speaking a different language. It knows you. It knows what's best.
Yeah, 100%. It's you, like, you know, knowing yourself is one of the key tenets to you know, to wellness. Yeah. And that's kind of like what we're talking about. That's definitely what a lot of this episode is going to be about tonight. Is about you know, is about wellness, and how we all find, you know, that's what the show's about, right? Like, we all have a different path to wellness, and we all, you know, and that's a good thing. And we need to share that, because maybe my path to wellness can help somebody else's path to wellness, but it doesn't need to be the exact same. And like, relationships is a huge portion of it. Like, there's a lot of people in our world that like don't have these relationships, and they don't have a support system. And there's definitely been times in my life when I haven't had the relationships, you know, the depth of relationships that I've had now. You know, I had to become this person, and For a while I wasn't. That I was a shell of this person. I was a lot sicker, and I didn't have these relationships, and I didn't feel as good, or I didn't feel like my life was as full. That makes me sad, right? Because a lot of people are living that way.
Yeah. So how did you get there, right? Like you're at a point where you didn't have the meaningful relationships that were filling your cup every day. I mean, did you ask yourself, did you realize I needed those?
I did, but at that time I didn't necessarily know that I was. Some people are so sick, and I think I was so sick that I didn't realize that at all. I was just in pure survival mode,
Sure.
and is what ended up happening. Is sometimes you can call it lightning in a bottle, but I got one of those relationships.
Oh.
The person who I'm married to. She saw me still as the person that I see today that sits in front of you. She saw that then. And I said, well, okay, that helped me believe in myself and say why did I've always been this person. That's who I want to be. And I for a while I wasn't the fully realized version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Still aren't.
Of course not, exactly right. But I wasn't even on the journey. I was so far. But that's when I said, wow, okay, let's start this journey. And guess what? I didn't start doing yoga that day. Yep. I didn't do that, but I started to care for myself a little bit more. And I realized that because I had this relationship that I had value, I did have worth. And I don't think that people should put value in, and that's not what I'm trying to say is that I thought that I had value because this relationship. It says, no, I this is what I was striving for. I was yearning for. I was yearning to have this intimate relationship with somebody where I could talk about the way that I feel and the way that this person feels, and then we could help each other try to understand life and go through life. And then I realized I can still do this with all these people, all the people in my life that maybe I had lost it. And it's great because I even brought back a ton of relationships which
isn't always easy.
Definitely isn't easy, and so it's that was it was a lot of fun to see that now. And then you just start to seek it out more. You want to become yourself more, and you start doing the yoga, and then you start dancing, and then you start your own companies, and then you're doing a podcast. Now I can't wait to see the even more fuller realization of myself. But I know that I'm super happy doing that because of and that was the transformation, is that I met somebody, she was great, and she helped me see the value in relationships so that I could see okay, that's a really important tenet. That's an important tenet of wellness, and it makes me feel really good. I'm going to go towards that feeling of good.
Yep.
And this stuff also makes me feel really good. Eating better, exercising, taking care of myself, having a passion, something that I'm passionate about, turning that passion into my job.
Yep.
All that stuff helped fill me up.
I like how you're saying how you're connecting the relationships with wellness, because I think that in my own path to wellness, which includes a multifaceted approach of many things, I think it's embedded in my relationships, and that gave me the confidence and the comfort to try to find out more about myself and fully realize who I am, because I've been so fortunate. I have had real friends since high school, and I've met people, especially in college, where I made more amazing friends who are near and dear to my heart. They didn't really want to go home on spring break or Thanksgiving break or something. And it wasn't jealousy, but some of my friends would mention, you're so lucky, Gus, you get to go home to your hometown and your boys are just waiting for you, And that was the first time in my life I was I am super lucky. I mean, some of my high school friends are still very close to me. I'm 31 now, we've moved across towns, across states. We'll go apart for a year and a half, and then you just pick up the phone and you call them and they answer. And I mean, I'm so fortunate to have that. And I think that's what now I'm I'll do more. They've held me accountable. So I'm okay with being humbled. I'm okay with being told my behavior maybe wasn't the best. Still don't love it, but I'm working on it. They've always been very real to me and made me push myself to who I want to be. If I'm saying one thing and acting inconsistently, they're going to call me on it, So it helped me find who I wanted to be. Who I am. Who I wanted to be wasn't always a good idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It helped you realize who you are. And I think like, it's funny because my experience is I had those boys, and I definitely, for a while it was that way. And then some stuff happened, with a girl, and I kind of was the outcasted one.
Yep.
And I still had a few of them that kind of came with me. And then my college boys, they were, I was so close with them and developing those relationships. But I'll tell you what, man, like when when I get together with some of these guys, like, one of the best men in my wedding, this kid, Jake Marcus, like I've been best friends with this kid since I was in 6th grade. And like, I'm going to get to see him next weekend. And like, it's just different. It's different when we come together. Like you said, we can hold each other accountable in a different way. We can communicate in a different way. And like, and our relationship did have like a lot of struggles and stuff. And like, but that's
a friendship forged in fire,
Yeah, a friendship forged in fire.
You can't have a real deep relationship with somebody without getting in a fight, I don't think. I have one of my buddies, Jim. He is, when I talk about courting a friend, that's who I think of, because really, like, when I had met him, I was like, this kid is so cool. Like, I want to hang out with it. Like, and I felt a vibration real fast, and I think he did too, but did he? You start asking yourself these questions. And I like pursued him. I pursued him as a friend. It's the only way that I can say it. We joke about it now, but like we pursued each other,
Yeah.
Are you free on Saturday? Like, I think I could make the night work, it's just, and he's, I lost my train of thought, but
I just love Jim.
I got a little overwhelmed with my love for Jim.
No, it's exactly. So like you said, my love for my buddy Jake is like, it's the same. You forge these relationships that are forged in fire. You were probably going to tell me about a fight that you had with him.
We have, I've like said things before, and instead of him kind of just letting it roll off, and he's like, Gus is my friend, I'm just going to, whatever. He'll call me on it and be like, what you said had offended me or had hurt me. And now I have to respond to that. And maybe the first response is, well, hey man, like, how did I get there? You did this or whatever. Hopefully that's not where it starts. Most of the time now when we discuss, it's like, you're right. I'm sorry. It's not what I meant. I don't say you misheard me, right? Like, that wasn't my intent. This is what I had meant. And he's there ready to forgive, and vice versa. I'm like, hey, Jim, you did this and it kind of offended me. Like, why are you underestimating my like love for you or my care, whatever it is, And he's there to take accountability, and I'm there to forgive. And we've done this dance maybe 3 or 4 times, and now I just feel like there's nothing our friendship can't conquer, because we've spent a day or two being pissed at each other. But you're not pissed at anybody you don't like. I just don't talk to you anymore. It's easy, right? Like when you're pissed at somebody, it's like, well, I really wish they were better because I like being with them, It's a friendship forged in fire. I can think of these fights and I feel awful. But most of the time they're merited. I said something without the requisite thought, and this is the result, and I'm glad he called me on it, because look at us now. I just asked him to be a groomsman at my wedding a couple weeks ago.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Did he say yes?
He said yes.
Okay.
He was surprised. He's like, you have so many friends. Like, are you sure you want me? I'm like, that's a dumb question.
Yeah, but isn't that amazing? That's
Yeah.
it's a cool thing when you go through that process, like the groomsman process and stuff, and you get to see, like, or just being a part of that. I've always enjoyed being a part of those.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I've been a best man, 3 times. I've been a groomsman quite, tons of times, and it's like just this amazing feeling. And like, I love weddings. I love the love. I love, the people working together to support this one person. Like, the people, my boys on my wedding, dude, like they crushed it, they did a good job, and it was amazing, when they showed up, and, it's just like having, basically is like we always talk about on the show. It's one of the tenets is like the only way is through. And like, me and my buddy Jake, dude, we have some, some fucked up shit, that's been, been back and forth between us, like some, stuff that we've done, I've done to him, he's done to me, but we know that there's just so much value in our relationship and what we can do for each other. And we just, we get past it, and we return to the, to the goodness. And it's like, that's such an important thing to be able to do. And I think, is what we're saying here is like people, like, don't be afraid to seek out relationships. You have to go through it. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be challenging sometimes. but just don't be afraid of it. I have 2 people in this room with me right now that I, have, met less than a year ago that like, I consider like, 2 of my best friends that I love, and like that I say I love you to. And like, that's a thing that I don't necessarily say. I love everybody, but I don't tell everybody that I love them. It's like, it's people who I really care about and that I mean that to. And so it's like, you can develop these relationships and you can find, and it's such an important part of wellness. And like, you talked about it, you said something really cool that, funny, I always say that, say something really cool. But you said that you want, see, I always hit the thing and it cuts out for a second. I predicted that was going to happen because it always happens. And you guys always hear me do it, and I'm sorry. And Meg, our video editor, Meg, she does a great job too. So, giddy up. Thank you, Meg.
I got one for you. You're talking best men and we're talking friends.
Yeah.
I just asked my best man last weekend to be my best man. Same reaction. Like, I asked him, he goes, "You want me to do your what?" He's like, "You sure?" And he's like, "I'm sorry. That just came out." But I have a good story with him. That's where I'm going.
No.
I do, I guess it's just, I use cannabis and use psychedelics.
Yes. No, so hear me out. This is where I was going. I remember I was going. Okay. I love it. That's the thing. So this is
what me and Steve do, like, all the time.
Yeah, that's how it goes. And so you were saying how you wanted to be cool. In high school you wanted to be cool, and you were so focused on wanting to be cool, and you were the class clown, and you would do you do these things to to get attention, to become cool. Yep. And then you realized that
what
was
I thought was cool.
What you thought was cool, and then you tell know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So
this is my intro to cannabis, I would say.
Yeah.
Just middle school. Honestly, until high school, I was just a decent student, good family, had friends, but I always just wanted to be like one level cooler. I wanted to be with the pretty women. I wanted like the cool guys who were making a little bit of mischief. Like, I wanted them to think I was cool or admire me like I did them, whatever it was. And I tried hard, and it was a time where I think I strained my relationship with my parents because I was just doing silly stuff. My grades were fine, but they weren't up to my potential. Fast forward to law school, that's my potential. But at the time, I was just a middle of the road student, and I got drawn to these kids. They weren't necessarily troublemakers, but it was at that time where people are starting to drink, maybe 14 years old. And it was pretty inaccessible to me, and I just didn't really like it. But there was a couple kids who would, get together late night, maybe sneak out of their house or something, and you meet in the road, and would just smoke a little cannabis and, like, sit in some grass and chat, I got into that. I had a really good friend, my buddy CJ. We're no longer as friends, just life. No event happened. He would come over, he'd sleep over at my house. We'd wait for my parents to go to bed, and we would be in my basement room, and we would just like smoke a bowl, play some video games, and chit chat. I started finding new music through him, started finding out things about myself, started being vulnerable with him. He started being vulnerable with me. I was never vulnerable. That's not cool. It's not cool to tell you that I have a strained relationship with a family member, but it colors in my day every day, and affects me. And being able to share that strife and stuff, I started opening up, and then I became a stoner. So I was smoking with more people, bunch of cool people, just having these conversations. And I started slowly becoming more consistent with who I was, not who I wanted to be, just, I want to go hang out with people, and I want to chat, and I want to play video games, and play sports, and be nice to people, right? Like, I was never a bully, but I probably got close to it because I thought that was something that would get me attention. And as this transformation was going on, probably ages 14 to 17, really self-discovery. I think my sister played a huge part in that. We'd smoke together and just kind of link up as a team instead of separate siblings. Like, it's just you and me, man.
That's beautiful.
It was, she's Elizabeth Stickley, greatest person, other than my mom.
That's giddy up.
And all of a sudden, opened my eyes. Everybody likes me, homecoming prince and homecoming king. That's not a brag. That's a meaningless thing. But all of a sudden, like, people are noticing me, but I stopped trying a while ago. I was just hanging out with really good people who brought the best out in me and held me accountable and then let me be vulnerable and honest with them. I wasn't quite myself yet, capital S self, but I was seeing that person, and I was starting to be that person. And college was just gasoline, to the fire. I met the coolest people. School started getting fun, right? You're choosing these, I took a class in communism, fascism, and democracy, and now I'm in it. I love this kind of stuff. You can't take that in high school. It's like you want AP World History or AP European History, and you do everything, a little bit of everything instead of diving in. And it all really happened. The Kickstarter was cannabis, just smoking a bowl. I remember being in my buddy's Chevy Blazer, parked in a lake parking lot. We smoked a bowl and we put on Spaceship Sounds on his radio, and we reclined in the seats and we shared each other's company for probably an hour and a half. And I think about that, like I put myself there right now easily. When I see him, that memory resonates through me. We just connected and did our thing. I don't think you need cannabis to do that, but it certainly helped. It certainly helped, and my heart swells when I think of those younger experiences using cannabis with friends.
Yeah, it's kind of like food in that it like brings people together, and like it provides a sensory experience.
Yep.
When people say that about food, they say like, oh, it's like food. They don't go to the next step that food also provides a very sensory experience. You eat the food and then you have dopamine rushing. All these chemical reactions taking place, and that's the exact same thing that's happening, with cannabis. And this is it's such a cool story to hear how you became cool, and
I don't even know if I became cool, right? But
no, but you did, because in your head, that's what you wanted to be, that, and you became yourself, and then you were that. That's like what does cool mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like Jake was my best man, Jake Marcus, the guy I was referencing, my gym, and he or not my gym necessarily because I've known this guy forever, but who we were talking about, he in his speech, he told me, Jake, when we were in high school, he was, he thought of himself as like a nerd, like just a geek, a guy who's like kind of is what he said, a weirdo. He considered himself a weirdo, and like I'm a weirdo, and I love weirdos. I just happened to be like, people like thought of me, and this is Jake said in the speech. This is not. He said I was the most popular guy ever. I was the most popular guy. I was the cool guy, I think. And so, but I didn't necessarily like see myself as that.
You didn't feel cool, huh?
Well, no, I didn't. I felt cool, but like it didn't. What felt cool was that I was like, when you're a kid, sometimes like I was more fully realized then at 12 and 13 than I had been at 26 when I had taken a revert. I had gotten sick, and now I'm back on that same path that I remember, and I'm bringing myself into who I was in my inner child. But I went and I told Jake in that speech, he reminded me that I went up to him when he was a kid and was like, dude, if you just be yourself, like don't worry about being cool. Like if you just be yourself, that is going to be the coolest thing ever.
Yep. And you're going to feel good.
And it's cool because it's like, that's, he said that to me in that speech, and I said, shit. That's what I do every time when I get in my podcast studio. That's what I try to do every single day, is I'm just trying to tell people that they need to be themselves, and they need to be who they are. And we can, through these relationships, man, we're able to do that. And it's so cool that we, and people are going to listen to this and be like, listen, Steve's saying how popular he was in high school. Gus is talking about how he was the homecoming king, these assholes, but.
What happened next in your life, you losers?
Yeah, right. Well, and that's the thing. I think with you, with me, both, we started to learn, like you go through, times of you've talked about this with me a little bit, where you're not as happy and you're not as mentally, you need to grow, and you need to have these, it's not all a linear straight track, up.
Yeah, well, I think that's the kind of goes. I've never heard this before, but again, everyone's path to wellness is different. Like for me, it's always been like this, but for you, it sounds like 13, you were kind of crushing it and self-realizing, and then you and then you shot back up, you know, and who knows what the world has in store. I've always pictured it as a linear.
Well, I wouldn't look
but
at
of course it's not.
Yeah, maybe, and that's now we're talking about Gus is going straight up there. I'm maybe it's if you stretch it out longer, then sure, I always was going straight up, but I was on a track where I was going to be, and so maybe that's what you're saying. I think, and I see you sometimes, and I say, yeah, this is a guy who has been on this track, but just know that life isn't always like that. Sometimes stuff does happen, and you get whatever it could be. Whatever. With me, it was mental health. It was addiction that I didn't know existed within me. Based on unresolved trauma from my childhood. And so then I get caught up with it, and it's like then I definitely wasn't on that same trajectory for a while of wellness. And now I feel like now that I've got it figured out. This is the conundrum. I feel like now I do have it figured out in terms of I will be on that straight linear path up.
Sure, with a couple road bumps.
But I know from my past, and I think this is why maybe sometimes I have an advantage, or maybe it's not an advantage. Maybe it holds me back. Sometimes I know, hey Steve, there's no high horse. You know what can happen. You know what sadness is. You know what it is to not want to wake up in the morning always. That existed within you. And you need to figure out how to, not let that happen again. And that's my focus a lot of the time for wellness, is because I feel so good now, and I just want to keep feeling better and better. Yeah. But I do know that maybe that could exist. That could exist for me.
Yeah, and I think if wellness has tons of things, but one of the things wellness does is give you the space to live authentically, to be yourself. If you're so caught up with the deafening roar of the world around you and your own thoughts and your own doubts and shortcomings, whatever, you're not leaving space to be yourself. And I think the whole exercise of wellness is geared towards that, freeing up space to be you. And again, takes 1,000 different paths. We have ours. We have a lot of overlap, which makes it fun to talk about. But I thought about dancing on the way up, trying to get better at it myself. But one of our first conversations, you told me that you just had this burning passion to dance. But that's a scary thing to go do in public, right? Be vulnerable in public. And now it's a part of your wellness routine. Like dancing is probably, I don't know if you still consider it a part of it. Yeah.
100% to the point where I tell Kayla, my partner, it's like, hey, I need to go dancing. And she knows what that means. Like, oh no, it's the same as somebody saying like, oh, hey, they need to go to the gym or they need to do this. Like, I need to go dancing. And not all the time. I don't abuse it. I have responsibilities, but it's like when I need to do it, I know I need to do it. And it's 100% a part of my wellness routine.
I love that. I was thinking about that on the way up. It's an aspect of mine, right? But not like I've got my pillars, but man, does dancing make me feel great.
Oh, dude.
And the vulnerability that comes with dancing, being comfortable with that, I just think is good.
I think that's what it was. I used to feel like I was going to throw up, man.
Yeah. You told me.
That was the story, right? Like, and it was going to be so sick because I was so worried subconsciously of what everyone thought around me.
Nobody gives a shit.
Nobody.
They're so busy thinking about themselves.
That's it, dude. That's it. And and that's how we connected, like some of that just like deep therapy work that, that was like needed, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you have somebody who's, assisting you, in that, like that's where you can figure out a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And that's where I figured out, well, why was I subconsciously, worried about everyone else? Why did I care? And, and then I learned to breathe. I learned the yoga and yeah, man, wellness, it's about creating space so that you can get out of your thoughts for a little while so that you can be in.
Sit in this thing right here, your body,
And that's why I talk about all the time. That's what yoga or anything, why people do opiates or any drug is like it helps you to just be comfortable in your body.
Yeah. And
that's like the cheat code why a lot of opiates and heroin and fentanyl is a huge problem in this country right now and everywhere is because it's immediate. It immediately makes people just...
Oh, yeah. The exercise we're talking about takes time. And the progress is incremental, so you don't always see it. I've always found that, probably my wellness journey, especially in the last, year or so, has really started cruising. I started going to therapy in October of last year just to kind of rough out the edges. I wasn't sad. I don't struggle. I'm very lucky I don't struggle with any mental health things. I was like, I unpack some stuff though, you know, and kind of help me get some more space for the people in my life. I found that I was being a little short. I was dealing with some external stress, and it was kind of being converted into being short with people I love very much, and that's not fair. But the progress I felt in the year is monumental, and if you could measure it tangibly, it's maybe a millimeter. You know, and you have to be comfortable with that. You have to be comfortable with, like, you go to the gym 2 months, every day for 2 months, you're going to see change. If you're really doing your thing at the gym, you're going to see change. You're going to feel better. Your muscles are going to be bigger, you're going to be faster, you're going to be stronger. If you work hard with your wellness for 2 months, you're lucky if you feel any differences. I hope you do, but you got to keep going. It takes discipline and willpower to keep going. And then all of a sudden, hopefully lightning in a bottle, or, you know, you're just living healthier, and you'll start to notice things. I've started to notice things in the last year. Just frustration management is probably the biggest thing. I let more stuff than I ever did. And that's because when frustration boils up, you know, I recognize it, I work with it, I give it space. You know, why are you here? Friend, great timing, you know. You know, about to go home and relax. Thank you for coming now. But you welcome it, you deal with it. And now that I've made this room, frustration just goes away a little easier than it used to. It feels good.
So you bring it up. So you meet it with positivity
and good humor. That was one of the things that we talked about this on the phone. But I love this. It makes me giggle every time. But you know, our emotions are not on the same clock as us. You know, you don't clock in at 9 and clock out at 5. So I find that frustration boils up in me at the most inconvenient times. And instead of being like, I got to do this thing, I can't be like, I got to write something. Right? I'm an attorney. I'm drafting a contract. I got to be laser focused if I want to get this done in the amount of time I have. But now I'm frustrated, and I'm frustrated that I'm frustrated. So now I'm cyclically getting more frustrated, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm behind on work and I can't do this thing. But now when frustration boils up, I just giggle and I go, welcome. Where have you been, buddy? It's great to have you back. You know, how are you feeling today? You know, like in my mind, I'm having this psychotic little conversation with a piece of myself. And because of that, it speaks to me. It doesn't articulate perfectly, but all of a sudden I'm like, hey, well, you know, I'm frustrated. You know, and it's always something dumb, right? Like, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but my frustration rarely has a good example. But I identify it and I go, you know, okay, that's something worth being frustrated about, but it's also not worth losing my day over. So you got to acknowledge it too. You can't suppress it.
Yeah, you got to meet it where it's at.
Shove it down, give it the space, and work with it. It's been fun. And when that happens, and I go, I'm getting better at this, you know. But again, it's incremental progress, and that's discouraging for some people. It's not immediate. Drug use or you know, physical, you know, gratification. Those things work too, but they're temporary. Wellness is like permanently improving. You know,
they're fleeting. You know, it's quick dopamine. It's quick. It makes you feel good temporarily, but you have like I really like how you talk about this and how you say like we need to meet it with positivity and meet our frustration with positivity and humor. This is a hack. Like this is a serious hack that anybody can use. Like any type. It can be anger. It can be sadness. Like any of your emotions. We don't control when they come up. It's you know, you said it perfectly. There's no time clock. We can't control when they come up. So how do we control those so that we can get through our life? Yeah. And like the more we do it, the better we get at it. That's like 100% true. And it's something that I like equate this to, and that you can see if you want to see something that you can physically change your emotions and how like how sensitive we are to certain things. It's like the same thing as like going in cold water. Okay, so you don't want to go in the cold water, and at first you do it, and you're like, that's, you know, sucks. I don't want to do that. You have negative. I'm out. Fuck. I'm miserable. I'm gonna die. That can never be good for me. You know, whatever. I'm out. Fuck. If you go in there and you touch it and you say, oh, it's cold. You know,
Okay.
Okay, a little cold.
That's
You
what
know,
cold feels like.
That's what cold feels like. But you laugh a little bit. You
Yep.
know, you smile. You
Ooh,
say,
it's really cold.
"It's really cold, dude. This is why am I even doing this? I'm doing this because it's gonna make me feel better afterwards." Okay, that seems a little crazy, but I got to do this. And this is funny, and this is great, and I got to meet this with positivity. Steve, don't be scared. Don't be a coward. Just do this because it might hurt right now, but the only way is through, and you got to smile and you got to go through. And so you get in the cold water and you go through it, and then it's better. And then by the 100th time you've done that, it's like you don't really need to do that. You know, you don't need to. You know, you're just smiling.
You go right into the cold.
Right into the cold, exactly. You go right in the cold, and you're smiling, doing it, and like it's a long term. You know, it takes 100 times to get to that point, but once you get to that point, you know, after you do it for a week, it's gonna be a little bit easier. And with physical stuff, our bodies are able to have that connection a little bit more. Now, when you're doing something that's entirely mental, it's gonna take some more time.
Take more time.
Yeah.
So we could talk about this later, and I'll give you some stuff. But what this idea we're talking about, and I'm sorry if I butcher this, but this is internal family systems. This is a kind of school of thought for therapy and for self-realization and for wellness, where you feel emotions or anything. I feel like emotion is too limiting of a word, but because I'm not a professional in this space, let's just use the word emotion. You feel an emotion, one that makes you uncomfortable, like cold water. And instead of doing what we all do and jam it down or get angry that it's come up, or be frustrated, like you're sad for 4 days in a row. Don't you get a little mad that you can't be happy like the other guy on the train or whatever? Instead of feeling those things, and this is hard, again, you make incremental progress in this, but breathing helps and all that jazz, and there's some other like actually modalities that you can do around your body, and but you give it space and you acknowledge it like it's a separate person, internal family. All of your emotions are a family that lives within you. The ship should be captained by the capital S self, but all these other players in the family want attention, and they'll draw you away. And then maybe they grab the wheel for a little bit, and you're like, I don't like when frustration grabs the wheel. You know, I like when Gus, capital S self, is driving the wheel, you know? But I always picture it when I breathe through it and do this exercise, I picture it like a board of directors meeting. The self is the chairman, and you've got all these screaming babies, man. You know, you got frustration. For me, I've got the critic. The critic is always there. He's very vocal, and you personify them, and then through a bunch of things. I highly recommend reading a book by Dr. Richard Schwartz, who is the founder of this concept. I'm sure he's just
Internal Family Systems. Yeah. And what's the name of the book?
It's called Introduction to Internal Family Systems by Dr. Richard Schwartz. Then you isolate that feeling. So for the critic, I picture him, he looks just like me, but he's a little sterner, and he's dressed nice, and he wags a lot of fingers. You know, he's like, Gus, you said you were going to get up for the gym at 6 a.m. this morning, and it is 8:15. You've been snuggling with Bonnie for 2 hours. Get going, you know? And instead of beating the hell out of myself, I go, okay, I'm really glad you're here. You hold me accountable. I have achieved things in my life because you are hanging around, making sure I got, boots on the ground moving forward towards my goals. But you don't need to yell at me all the time. I'm talking to myself, right? But you have this dialogue, and they'll talk. You feel it. You're like, yeah, but you said you were going to get up. I'm like, I know I did, but not everything I say to myself I have to follow through with. I'm pretty good, and I'm going to strive to be better. And I accept myself, and I love myself unconditionally. Little mantra, whatever. You take that part of your internal family, and you discuss like a family issue you have. And after starting doing this, I am much more self-led than I've ever been. Tons of room for improvement. But it feels good to have mastery over my wild family. Wild family. Everybody's got a wild family inside them.
Yeah, dude. Everyone's got a wild family inside them, and like most of this, we all want to affect the other people in this world. I wanted to, that's my biggest thing, right? Like I want to affect people. Jacob might call it the savior complex, but I want to have effect on the world, and I that's important to me. And I learned that if I'm not well, and I'm not taking care of my house, and I'm not taking care, then it seeps into every single aspect of my life and affects every single portion and experience and relationship that I have.
And now it's gonna start spiraling, right? Like if you're disappointed in yourself because a relationship's not going well, the relationship's not going to get any better by you heaping disappointment on yourself. So you're fulfilling what is making you upset.
Yeah,
you know,
it's self-fulfilling, and it's you then you just like kind of get addicted to that negativeness, that negative feeling. You know, you're making yourself feel bad, making yourself, the critic, always coming down on you. You get like addicted to that feeling, so you can almost even create situations like situations like this for yourself, and it's like it's horrible when it's like you should just be able to. We all should be able to just be able to figure out who we are, what we want to do, realize that we all have emotions, and to be able to talk through this, get through it.
Yeah. And I, obviously therapy is really helpful, or if you have good friends, that's super helpful. But there's friends I'm not vulnerable with, they're not as deeply my friends as other ones are, but I've been fortunate to, tell people the biggest disappointments of myself, and just kind of work through it. And we say it out loud, you can start working through it. And I think this kind of self-reflection is critical. And you don't see enough of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound cynical, but, a lot of people are so focused on the loudest things in their lives, then you need to dull that through all of the stuff, right? For me, yoga for sure, reading, diving into my relationships. Like if you're having a bad day, call a friend and catch up. When you leave that call my sister, which I don't do enough. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. You leave that call, and whatever you were upset, frustrated, angry about, it's at least diminished. I want to find anybody who can tell me differently,
Yeah. That's the thing is like my critic, he'll tell you different. He'll say, hey, you cocksucker, what are you doing wasting time?
Yeah.
Stop
calling a friend.
Calling a friend for personal time. Yeah. You own a business, dude. Time to get to work.
Yeah. You're a father.
Yeah. You're a father. Right. Yeah. So yeah, but then I got to tell him, cause guess what? I got to say, why are you saying that? That's funny. You're over there saying that when I'm over here feeling this good from that conversation that I just had with my friend.
And thank him for being there.
And thank you, because I know that you're going to get me up tomorrow, and you're going to make me drive, and you're going to make me, work the 12-hour days and the 15-hour days when I need to. Yep. And I love you for that, because that's a giddy up.
Power down every once in a while, my friend.
Yeah, you can power down. It's a really such a really cool way to look at it, and a unique way to look at it. I wish more people were doing it. I wish it was more, I wish I had heard about it more. You were the first person who, this is something that I've been kind of doing on my own, been just naturally, through therapy, and but no one had ever talked to me about, personifying this and doing this until, we had actually talked about it. And I just think that this should be something that's more widespread, because, you said something about mantra earlier, like a little self-mantra, if you're not saying a mantra to yourself every morning, you're not doing it right. Yeah. You need your language is important, and what we hear and what we hear and what we say to ourselves is so important and so powerful that you need to do it. And these conversations that you're having is just that. It's a self mantra. It's self. You're constantly making, reassuring yourself. You're constantly reassuring yourself. And that's the way that you learn. That's the way that you train your nervous system over a long period of time.
Yep. Long period, right? Again, going back to incremental progress. But no, it's a beautiful exercise. And I think one of the reasons why people don't, learning about IFS, first time I learned about it was October of last year. And it's changed the way I look at the world, but it's very hippy dippy. I'm just using the words that an opponent or somebody reluctant to
the advocate, the devil's advocate. Yeah.
Just, it's okay, really, I got to get to work, or whatever, the self-care is unsexy, right? I could play NHL or something. But instead I'm going to go sit on my balcony, take a couple deep breaths and try to body scan. What's there? Who's flaring today? Nobody? What a miraculous day. Thank you, everybody. Even that. Just letting the board of directors know. Let's all go play some NHL. Now we can all go. Thank you for your time, Quick board meeting. But, sometimes things are louder. I highly encourage people to, I've talked about it with Bonnie, of course, just because we talk about everything. But I haven't got into it as much with my friends. But, I just think it's such a great exercise. It's also super fun. Like if you close your eyes and start making your emotions things, I guess you got to be creative and have an imagination, but it's super fun for me. Like I got personalities for everybody.
Yes, that's cool, man. I think that you'd have the world might benefit from, the world would definitely benefit from this, and I think you would really enjoy it. But when you find some time, you should write about this, a book about this. You should
a book about it.
You should, man. You should go to, you're such a good writer. You're so articulate. You're able to, you know what's going on. Like this would be a really cool story, and I bet Dr. Richard Schwartz would love that somebody is for further progressing what he's, his modality that he's trying to create, and even if it's like that, just to help people understand it. It's fascinating to me.
Gus, I know that you have a friendship with Steve, so I'll just chime in real quick and say that you should absolutely wite a book, and I just met you an hour ago. Okay. There you go.
All right, we'll keep going. You guys are going to tell me to write about other topics. This one I know only a little scrape of the surface, but
I know, but it's your personal experience. I'm not saying you write it now, Gus. I'm not saying you're writing it today. I'm just saying you need to. I'm saying go deeper, deeper into this, and keep learning about this, because it seems like you're passionate about it and you're really good at it, and you're gonna, you care to share it with people. It was like the first thing that you and I talked about. So like that's the giddy up. And that's what we need people to be doing, things that they're passionate about. And you're passionate about cannabis, you're passionate about relationships, and do what you want. So be who you are. And I just say, but maybe at some point, if you're thinking that, you'd like to you do what you want, man. Just explore, keep going down this path, because you're really onto something.
I just had a brain blast. I've always wanted to write a book. I write short fiction. I got a friend of mine who's an exceptional writer, and we'll get together, we'll lubricate with a little brown liquor, and we'll just do like writing prompts, and then we switch, we trade the work and we read it out loud to each other. It has been such a rewarding exercise. I think he's one of the greatest writers ever, and I think he'd say the same about me, which is just more bromancing. But I've always wanted to write a larger fiction book, write a lot of short fiction, and then sometimes we'll be like, dude, this one's a book. This one's a book. You can go. It would be fun to get my board of directors to be the characters of my fiction book. Kind of make it I don't know what the right word is, but allegory maybe, metaphor, right? They'll be like characters. They'll be people. You'll be reading it. But at the end, if I told you that this is inside my body, you'd go, oh, make a fictional land, Gustav Opia.
I want to license it for the screenplay already.
Yeah,
I'm already past the book. The book's great. The book that you wrote, good. Now let's turn it into a movie.
Casting me for the critic.
Yes,
sure.
Dude. Yes. Man, that's a really cool way, and what a cool way to teach. I'm always thinking of that way. That's kind of like that stuff too, right? Like a way to teach kids, a way to teach people. Media is a cool way to do that. Animation's a cool way to do that. Like what we can do in this day and age. And when you take concepts, there is some books out there that do deal with stuff like what we're talking about. I think like Inside Out is a good movie that talks about some of this stuff.
I wouldn't be the pioneer for sure.
No, for sure. But but your story specifically and going into what it's kind of different than Inside Out. It's not. Watch that movie. It's a great movie.
Yep.
And all kids should watch it. But it's what you're talking about is like even deeper than that. And personifying these guys and meeting them where they're at. And I just think that wellness as a whole is people are starting to really open up to this idea that we need to identify all of our feelings, sit with our feelings, and you do a lot of this work. Like you do have a therapist, you said, but you do a lot of this work on your own.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. And that's the most important part. Is
it's the only way therapy works too, right? I mean, if you just think you could, this goes back again to our instant gratification thing, or it's if you just go to therapy for the hour you have it every week or every other week, you can get nothing done. You got to do some prep work, and then you should do the exercises. And then whenever I talk to somebody, they're like, I went to therapy once, and it wasn't for me. I was like, once? Yeah. Like, I went to yoga for the first time and was like, yeah, whatever. And now I can't live. I can't move my body unless I've done it at least once a week, hopefully much, much more,
Yeah.
Because it takes getting into.
It's just it's a perfect analogy because if you do you do yoga and for the first a month, 2 months, 3 months, even 4, whatever, half a year, it's wow, this is hard, this is different, my body's not used to this. But then when you get into the flow of oh, this is how my body is supposed to be moving, I know this set, it's into my it's in my body, I know these movements. It's just it's a necessary thing that you need. You say, okay, I can't believe I wasn't doing this beforehand. How was I even living beforehand? how was I even functioning? And then just shows how like at the higher levels that we can function at.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I know how I'll feel afterwards, right? You got to do it a couple times to really remember. I'm going to wake up really early one morning and go and do yoga, and that stinks because I want to sleep. But I know when I'm done, I'm going to feel good.
Dude, that's the number one thing for me. Like I said, I'm dopamine. I want to feel good.
Want more of this.
I want more of this. And but it's delayed. It was the first time where I was really like, saying in my head, like what you just said, when I said, oh, okay, yeah, this sucks. Waking up at 6 to get to yoga, and I don't need to do it. I didn't need to do it, I wanted to do it. That was the difference. Like I never had a problem when someone told me I needed to do something, or, a job, or, sports, or, I was this or that. Like I'm going to show up, and I'm going to show up times 100, like there's no issues about it. But if I didn't necessarily, like, in my head, if I can convince myself I don't need to do this, it's not gonna, in my head back then, it's not gonna change my life if I sleep in, or if I don't go to yoga. I think I'm gonna get a little bit more sleep, and that's gonna be good, and it's not gonna really help me that much.
Never benefited you. You don't need that much sleep.
No, exactly. You don't need that much sleep. And so and you do need enough sleep, for sure.
It's part of the wellness regime as well, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Sleep is definitely a part of the wellness regime, but you need to, getting up, dude, and then going and getting, and making sure you're getting to that yoga class. Like, and I'm doing these 7 a.m. yoga classes all the time. Then I'm doing a 6:30 a.m., 6 a.m. yoga class. And I'm like, and it's just not an issue for me because I know how good I'm going to feel after. Even like at first, even when you're doing the set at first, I like a lot of hot yoga. So like, you're getting in there, you're starting to swell, and you're like, this fucking sucks.
Oh yeah.
This sucks. What am I doing here? Why am I here? I could be home in bed. And then like 10 minutes later, you're like, oh yeah.
I'm conquering this.
I'm conquering
fighting
this.
gravity right now. It's amazing.
And then the next 10 minutes after that, you're like, oh yeah, this is why I'm here.
Yep.
This is why I'm here, because I'm starting to feel really good. And then at the end of it, you're like, why would I ever think any differently? I need to make sure that I come here tomorrow. Make sure that I don't allow myself to trick. Our brains are so tricky, man. They want to always trick us into, into not like into safety. I guess it is. It's a safety thing, or like I don't know what it is, but like we're doesn't want us to go to yoga sometimes. It wants us to stay in bed.
And it's amazing that, no matter how many times I'll leave an early morning yoga class and feel great. First thought I have when I wake up at 5:15 or whatever is go, I want to go back to bed. Like, I still feel that way. And I'm like, mind, what are you doing, man? Be on my side. Let's go, be jazz. And then you get there, and first couple postures, I'm like, maybe this was a mistake. But, I'm all hot yoga too. So eventually you just zone, and then it's done.
Then it's done, and you feel fucking awesome.
It's funny, you're saying earlier, we were talking about meeting things with good humor. And as you said something like, I kind of smile through it. I have one yoga teacher who teaches many things, but the Hot 26 Bikram yoga, which is my household's go-to, we'll be in the middle of a posture, a real tough one, and you're holding it for dear life, and she'll just be like, and lock your knee, interlace your fingers, yep. And then like we're moving through the posture, and she's like, and with your happy, smiling faces. And I just want to like punch her in the throat. I'm like, that's exactly the way we should be approaching this discomfort and everything. But I'm like, I'm going to die. I love it. And she's right. But if you internalize, I'm going to meet this with my happy, smiling face, that posture is way easier to get through.
This is what I'm talking about, man. Like, this is how the intention of what you say is so important. Man, there's this yoga teacher, Jennifer Norton. She teaches, Chatham Lighthouse Beach yoga down in Chatham in Cape Cod down in the summertime, and she does it on the beach every morning. And she constantly tells people, her students, that they need to bring in smiling energy. You need to have bring in smiling energy. Because she'll always say there's a bazillion, whatever number postures for yoga. And guess what? None of them are for the jaw. So stop clenching your jaw, let in some smiling energy. And like, I'll tell you what, man, when I'm sitting there and then she says that and then I smile and I bring in the smiling energy and I do some breaths with a smile on my face, I always feel better.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I'm in my shower or I'm somewhere else or I'm pissed off because someone just said something or pulled out in front of me or, did something wrong or whatever, and I'm frustrated, right? I just say, you want to know what? I can use the smiling energy because, like, you can, another hack. You can trick your brain, just like your brain tries to trick you into stay in bed. Fight back, fucking back, fight back, baby. That is great because that's really what it is. It's your brain wants to keep you in bed, and you're gonna say no.
Not today, friend.
Not today, friend. We're getting up and we're gonna go do this. And guess what? Same as you want to go eat the bad food. You want to eat this. No. All the wellness. It's all we're our worst enemies. We're the critic. We're our best cheerleaders. We're everything, and we need to cultivate all those personalities within ourselves.
And I think a little bit of this is discipline and willpower, which is a tough thing. You don't have it or you don't, but it takes a lot to exercise it and get it there. Live consistently with your beliefs, right? So if you want to get up to yoga and your brain goes, stay in bed, pull the deepest well of your willpower and go, no, I made a promise to myself and I'm going with it. You will feel better than letting that manipulator win. Fight back, and it's discipline and willpower. And that, unfortunately, I don't know where that comes from, or I would love to give the secret recipe to everybody, but that just comes with practice.
Only way is through. Yeah. It's from doing it. It's through practice and experience. It's like if you have the experience to draw on. I know in my life now, like I haven't, now I'm not actively practicing hot yoga where I'm doing it 5-6 times a week. I'm getting into a hot yoga studio maybe twice a month right now. I'm doing my other wellness right now. Exactly. So it's like, it's not where I want to be. And I'm doing other things with some heat, and I'm going to be starting a personal training regimen pretty soon. So doing something a little bit different, but like, I know that no matter how far I go away from it in my life, I know that I'm going to feel, that's already uploaded into my brain that I can get away from it, where it's like I'll trick myself to the point where I won't want to do the yoga, and I can say, oh, that yoga is, how could that be good for me for like a second? But then I know I need to go do it. And then immediately once you do it, your brain starts, that upload happens again. This is the way to feel good.
Yep.
This is how I'm going to feel good in my body. And like having a movement practice, I think, we had a gentleman, one of our latest episodes with this gentleman, Alec Lieberman, and he owns On Target Fitness, and they're, a great institution over there. And he, him and I, we talked about how like fitness is like the easiest door opener to wellness. It's a lot easier. Like if, for me, and that was for me, man, for sure. Like once I started doing the yoga, and the dancing led me to the yoga, and then the yoga led me to to doing more deep work and to doing more therapy and to being healthy and wanting to do nutrition and all these all of this stuff. And it fitness was like the the door opener. And however you get your fitness, whether it's weightlifting or yoga, like that's such an important piece of it.
And I think we've said this to each other, that's while not an easy piece, it's the easiest piece of wellness, I think. It's approachable to everybody. It comes in many different forms, but you got to move your body and sweat. And then it unlocks and makes space, and then you can kind of pursue some other things, right? I mean, the first move is not, I'm starting my wellness journey. I'm going to go deeply meditate and isolate my feelings. You're not going to feel any of them. You're not familiar with them, and struggling through fitness exercises, self-reflection are probably good places to start. I think the struggle is awesome. That's why I love yoga. Is like, Bonnie doesn't let me say that I'm bad at it because there's no such thing, but I'm bad at it. And it's refreshing to go to a place and be humbled. Everything you do is a success because it's so hard. I did an unassisted wheel the other day for the first time. Yeah.
That's a giddy up.
I couldn't do it today. I went to Barcan earlier, and we ended with wheel, and I have a teacher taught me an assisted way, and it's awesome. Couldn't get up, arms are a little tight, whatever. Totally yoga's non-judgmental. Got to be non-judgmental in the room. But when I did that, I mean, I got accepted to law school. I got a decent job out of there. My friends like me. Like, there's all these achievements I have, but I was like, but the unassisted wheel. Is that the best thing I've ever done in my life? Maybe. It's just it's such a rewarding practice because it's so difficult.
Yeah, to have those feelings.
And it's for everybody, right? A lot of people think I'm not flexible. You should see some of the people in our classes. They're amazing, not that flexible. They're getting more flexible. They're working on it. But that's not why you go to yoga. You go to struggle. You go to struggle and sweat and learn,
that was my whole thing, man. It's like that's such a common misconception, right? Like that yoga is there for flexibility. Sure, you're gonna get more flexible by going to yoga. That's likely gonna happen. Sure.
It's a side effect.
It's a side effect. It's not the reason you're going, dude. Yeah. Like that's what I thought yoga was for, and like that's the way it was like presented to me as like, oh, that's like to get more flexible and to like to be more mobile. And like sure, directly to like fitness and having to but there's even better ways to get mobility than yoga. Like yoga is yoga is great, but yoga is the mental, the mentalness because you're focused. You're so focused on the movements and being in your body, and
especially with the heat on top of it, it's trying to force you to quit. Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. It's trying to force you to quit.
No, right? No, I can do this. You gotta have mantras in yoga. If you don't have mantras in yoga, mine's just yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
I'm always like I could take a couple savasanas while people do the postures. I can't do this one. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. And sometimes I literally cannot. But I take a couple savasanas and then I try to get back in it. But it takes a lot to get me there. Whereas when I first started, second I'm uncomfortable, I'm like sitting out the next 30 minutes.
Yeah. See, dude, for me, I would try to like push through, and try to like, to the point where I would be chugging chugging water and trying to like, do this and then like running to the bathroom and like whatever throwing up, again, like I love to throw up, I guess, it's my defense mechanism for my body, right, to throw up.
Not a bad one.
Not a bad one. Lets you know what's good, get a little sweaty, get a little throw up, and then, back to baseline. It's like, oh yeah, like what, how's that? Like you just want to dance in front of people and you're going to start throwing up?
Nothing like a good vomit session,
Yeah.
Clear yourself out, get yourself comfortable.
Yeah, you need it sometimes.
It's purging the toxins, Jacob, right? I brushed up on the Safer Act just for today.
Oh, for real? Okay, so you know a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've written a couple blogs on it. Oh, well, I wrote blogs on the Safe Banking Act, which is no different.
Yeah.
Just somebody else wanted to take credit for it, so you needed to change the name. It should be Rep. Ed Permuter, the rep from Colorado, who's been trying to champion this way before it was cool. And then
he's the guy, right?
Yeah, he's the man, but he had retired last year, so now if this bill passes, it doesn't even have his name on it, and I know that he didn't do it for pride and stuff, but everybody should pay homage to a champion of.
What's his name?
Ed Perlmuter.
Ed Perlmuter.
Perlmuter.
Yeah.
Rep from Colorado.
I'm familiar with just the rep from Colorado and how he's, or maybe I'm confused now because who's the I know.
Let's see if I'm even right.
No. I think that there's someone who's bringing if he's retired, who's bringing it forward now?
Like Kristen Cinema or some.
Oh, that name sounds. Yeah, that sounds like a familiar name.
There's not. I mean, not a federal government guy. Pretty apolitical, anyways. But Ed Permuter was a servant of the people.
Right. Okay.
And there's not many of them.
There's not many servants of the people. They're pretty bad. The politicians. They serve themselves and the big corporations that own them.
Yeah, it's like Cory Booker and stuff. This is a list of names I'm not a big fan of.
But, yeah. Okay. Okay. So Permuter's the guy.
He's the man. And he retired from government. And I'm speculating, but I think he just got exhausted with what it looks like to be.
Yeah, it's like
a politician.
Some people are saying that that's what Mitt Romney, because people look at Mitt Romney as one of the good ones, I think.
And you can say whatever you want about him. I mean, in the last 5 years, he's the only person who's thought rationally on issues and joined the Democrats on things. He's a conservative. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's his party. The Republican Party is his party, but it doesn't mean I have to follow them blindly in everything that they do and not the MAGA madness.
Yeah.
No need to get political at all.
No, there's no need to get political, but it is a danger to this country, and it is going to, it seems like it's going to be the same, we're going to have the same options in 2024 as we did in 2020, and yeah, it's not good.
It's not an option for me.
Not an option for me either.
Options.
We're lucky to have, for me at least, I'm likely going to be voting for RFK Jr., unless someone else presents themselves, or if he, I guess I have a long time to decide, but as of right now, I'm definitely putting my support behind him just because everything that he's saying is what this country needs. He's trying to actually heal this country and show people that there's a difference, that we don't need to fight. All this political infighting is bullshit. We don't need to do that. Like, we just need to heal as a country and fix the problems that we have. Yeah. We know we can easily do it. We just need to come together.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of, I don't want to get conspiracy theorists, but there's a lot of interests that don't want unity. unity is bad for business.
Yeah,
and that
I'm not sure that's a
I
conspiracy.
was
I
just
think that's
saying-
just a reality.
That's
Yeah,
just the
Gus,
truth, Jacob. Yeah.
it's a reality, and it's like it's so hard because it's like, a lot of like work and a lot of jobs and everyone, like so much stuff that depends on certain things, but it's never it's not always in favor of progress.
No.
I see it all the time. Like you have these industries, like what you're talking about, like conspiracy theories that like, it's like, no, this stuff is like, we could solve some of this stuff so easily, but like because of the interest, and I don't think there's like conspiracy theory. Like, I don't think that there's like necessarily like this group of people who are deciding,
It's not a cabal or something.
I don't think there's a cabal. It's just everybody serving their self-interest.
It's super entrenched, right? The players are entrenched, whether it be, the NRA is a great example. I'm not just attacking the NRA. I'm not an anti-gun person by any means. It's just a good example of how to get a stranglehold on policy through what? 70 years, if not more, of just owning certain policy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the NRA has been able to dictate certain policy just because through their lobbying efforts, you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can't remove them. We can't go, all right, no more NRA influence.
Right.
Good luck.
Good luck.
You need an entire regime change. We need to go to a monarchy for things like that to change. And that's cynical, right? Like, you can always affect some amount of change, but related to wellness and politics, you say, RFK might be your guy. I'm probably not going to vote. And I hate to say that because you're on Veterans Day. Ton of respect for people who, and first responders who obviously don't fight foreign wars, but service to people is the highest, it deserves commendation of the highest order. Huge supporter of that. Having the right to vote is beautiful. 1919 suffragettes, getting African American votes, getting women votes, having the right to vote while so many people can't. I feel privileged. It feels great. But objectively, I don't think my vote means very much, especially when it comes to a presidential race. And thinking about it and participating in it and discussing it with people causes me pain. It causes me unwellness to participate in federal politics, not state and local politics. You can affect great change there, and you should participate in your communities and protect your communities and be an active member, as active as you want. But when somebody's telling me that they don't like the senator from Arizona because they're doing something weird there that I wouldn't agree with, like, I can't put bandwidth into this. I can't put my mind to this. I can't affect change. I can't affect meaningful change from Massachusetts. And if I can, through some way, probably not willing to put the effort in. I'm focused on other stuff. So instead, I've become apolitical in many ways, where I don't not care about everybody, but I can only control certain things. And ever since I've come to grips with that and kind of stopped participating in federal politics and the media surrounding it, I feel so much better. And whenever anyone wants to have a conversation with me about a political thing, I'll talk about it with you like philosophically. Right? If you want to talk about abortion, let's talk about it. These are all the points for me. What are the points for you? Great. Those are really good points. You're hearing mine, whatever they are. But we don't need to talk about who represents who and what this state is doing or whatever. Like, I'd rather just talk about the subject. And if I cared about it enough, then I would do something about it. But some of my friends, I have 4 excellent friends. We're in a group chat together, and we do talk about politics sometimes. And I've honestly sometimes been like, what's going on? And something massive has happened in the world. And I'm locked out of it on purpose. And they're like, don't you want to be, a part of what's going on and being an educated citizen? It doesn't do me any good. I'd rather talk to a person on the street and get to know them. I've done more for my community that day than yelling at Twitter about something.
It's so spot on, and I want you to teach me because you
get into it.
No, I don't. I don't ever get into it with anybody. I don't go on Twitter. I don't put my views on anybody, and I would say I'm rather like apolitical as well. I don't like subscribe to the 2-party system. I think that's a bunch of horse shit. It's broken. I just feel like I feel like I don't necessarily need to participate in it, but I would like to affect change with it. And I sometimes you're right. The only way that I can truly affect change is just by being a better person, doing what I'm doing already, and by doing it to the best of my ability. And like, I'm doing that in my community, and it's noticeable, and it's an awesome thing, and I feel it. but it's like I want to affect more. I want to have
you
more.
want a greater effect.
Yeah, I want a greater effect, and
Of
it's
course.
like and that's sometimes you can just get caught up in that, I guess. But I want to be able to shut myself off from it, and I have gone through periods of time when I've been able to do that, and like you said, I'm so much happier. And guess what? Nothing really changes in the world. It's like it's still really bad, and bad people are still doing really bad shit. But I don't know. I just
you really want to affect change. This is, and I think you're doing this. So I'm not giving you the magic sauce here, but everybody wants to be jazzy about certain topics, political topics, yell at each other, whatever. I'm like, if you want to make a change, be kind and respectful to everybody you meet every day. Do that. Be kind and thoughtful. Don't bring rage and anger in anything you do. I'm just talking at a community level. I'm not talking on Twitter or anything. Just like be walking around, hold every door. When somebody pisses you off, be like, if everybody did that, we'd fix the government. It would fix the government. We wouldn't have people in power like that. They would be held accountable. Things would change massively if everybody handled their little circle of influence versus trying to affect influence over oceans. Mm-hmm. Just focus on this. It wouldn't be an overnight change, right? We'd have to change the culture of people through being kind and thoughtful and respectful at all times. That's what I try to control. The perfect day for me looks like that, where I was super kind even when it was difficult. I was thoughtful, so that person might be going through some stuff, and that's why they're acting this way. That maybe happens to me three days of the year. But that's what you strive for, and that's the way you can affect change. It baffles me that people they raise their heart rates. They shorten their lives, worrying about stuff that they can't control.
Yeah, I just hate the way that they argue about it. I wish that they because they're just subscribed to the two-party system or they're subscribed to whatever. I wish they could do what you said. It's like, hey, this is how I feel about abortion. This is how you feel about abortion. Let's actually talk about it. And maybe there's a right answer here. Maybe there's something that we can do that's good, the best for the most people.
And help me understand, or I'll help you understand.
Yeah,
you've said it on your podcast many times, but just dialogue and discussion that would cure everything. So many people unwilling. It's too deep. They're too deeply entrenched. I mean,
I want to get them all here.
People.
I want to get the federal politicians. This is how I will affect change. I'm going to bring this show to a level of popularity where they can't say no. They have to come on my show, and I request them to. And then we're going to do mushrooms. And
yes.
And then what's going to happen? And I get them up here, and I start talking to them about. And they're on mushrooms, and they don't realize that their perception of shift. And they're like, oh yeah, that is stupid that I do that to this many people, and have these different opinions when we could literally meet in the middle. We could meet in the middle here, and we could figure out a way that's the best for the most people.
One of my funniest internet stories is a gentleman who tweeted out, and it went viral, that he was a libertarian until he did mushrooms and realized that everybody's important.
That's not surprising at all. Wow.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what a megalomaniac federal politician looks like on mushrooms, though. I mean, you don't run for president because you're a dedicated public servant. I don't believe that. You don't get to that platform without being, I'm just going to say it, I don't think you get to that platform without being arrogant and self-centered and a desire to feel power and authority.
It's 100% true.
Okay,
even the best of them, people would say, Barack Obama, they think of him as the best he literally broke up with, one of his girlfriends. He was dating a Spanish girl, and he broke up with her because he knew that he wanted to be president of the United States, and for him to do that, he needed to marry a black woman. He needed a Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
And so he ended a relationship because he wanted to be, and he's there's letters of him saying this, and and it's just wow, that your aspiration to the point where you you just want to be president of the United States because you not because you want to you want to be president of the United States. Me, some fucking guy who really cares about helping the world, and who would do the work, and who would just do all, would care so much, and would, that would be the worst fucking 4 or 8 years of my life, just because I wouldn't sleep. I would just be up working the whole time, trying to figure out what was the best for everybody and talking with the most people. And it's no, these people just want to get there so that they can say that they're president of the United States, and they can use their power, their influence to then make their own lives better. Yeah. Yeah. Egomaniacs.
Yeah, and even if they affect change, right? I mean, to many, Obamacare was a great change. I'm not opining on that. Again, keep it apolitical. But did he do that for healthcare for all, did he do that so that his presidency was now marked with one of the most monumental healthcare bills of all time? I don't know the answer to that question, but like it could just be that he just wants a longer lasting, bigger legacy, not I want to make sure that people are getting good health all the time. Of course he's going to say that at the podium.
Right.
Amazing speechwriter. Well, he's a great writer, but he had amazing speechwriters.
And he was an amazing orator, the best.
Probably the best speaking president of our lifetime.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Of our lifetime, 100%.
JFK was amazing.
Yeah,
he's
JFK
probably
was
the
really
last
good.
one you go to.
Yeah.
I like Dwight Eisenhower a lot.
Yeah.
But he was like, he wasn't eloquent. He was honest. And
He was the last Republican.
Yeah,
Last real one.
You think so? Yeah.
Absolutely. If you think about the way Republican policies are written and addressed, he was the last one to do it in an actual conservative manner, like what it meant to be a Republican.
Yeah, yeah.
And since him, it has been something very much different. I think you would agree that Nixon is not comparable to Eisenhower. Reagan, not comparable to Eisenhower. Trump, not comparable to anyone. So it's like Eisenhower was the last one that you can look at as the Republican Party as a thing and go, that's the guy. That was who it was.
Yeah, and maybe that's like because I have conservative tendencies, I have liberal tendencies. It doesn't only go two ways, right? But the things that I'm conservative about, I think that's who I need to think about, right? That's the archetype of how I feel. I'm not conservative because everybody puts Republican ideology with being thoughtless about other people, right? And self-centered. I don't have conservative policies because I don't care about people. That's crazy. I care about people a lot. I have conservative policies because some of them are very sound. They're very sound. When implemented correctly, when you're trying to administer, what do we got? 333 million people in America. When you're trying to administer that, you can't be super liberal with everything. You can't. You won't have any funds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, man, 100%. You know, you got to keep the lights on, and that's why, like, I'm, you know, from like a ideologic standpoint, you know, like in terms of like, you know, my soul, like I'm a very liberal person, you know, but like the more I see, you know, not even the more, I've just always been like this. Like there's just always room for both. Whatever works the best, and let's figure it out together. Like instead of all this infighting and all this BS and all this bureaucratic bullshit that we do and waste time with. Like I wonder sometimes, like, is it necessary? We are like the greatest nation that I've seen. You know, like we're like, you know, one of the greatest empires that has existed. That is definitely fact. You know, maybe not the best, but like one of the best, you know, the United States. And it's like, but all of this BS has to exist for, does it have to exist for us to get to this point?
Yeah,
like,
I think when you have, so the way to affect change quickly is to have a monarchy, right? Because you can wake up and the monarch can go, this is now it. It's going to take a second to sink in, but we're talking like a week, especially if the lieutenants and the actual bureaucrats and boots on the ground enforce it right away. Change that day. If that's for the better, that's awesome, right? We have a monarch of America tomorrow, and they affect all the changes that, you know, it's going to be subjective for everybody, but what that person thinks is the right path for America, they subject all the changes. Lovely. Then you get a new one or whatever, and it totally shifts. Like, we can't let change happen too quickly, because then when the wrong person's at the head of the ship, that poor change is affected quickly. So we've muddied down the system with bureaucrats to the point that almost change is impossible. It's not impossible, but we've slowed down change by gunking up the gears through a huge red tape bureaucracy. And I think it's because of a fear of flip-flop, move this, whatever. But there are days I wish we you know, synthetically created the most benevolent monarch of all time to run the country.
Yeah,
right?
that would be better.
Who's rational, takes everybody's
takes the best of us, the best of all of us,
boom,
synthetic person who's the best of all of us, and they make all that would definitely like be the best. I agree with you.
It's the best form of government. What do we call that?
Benevolent despot theory is what it's called.
Yeah?
The benevolent despot theory.
Okay, there we go.
It's that if the best form of government would be a benevolent despot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, you know, I could see that. You know, maybe not for like growth and change, but as long as there was like type of committees underneath the despot, the benevolent despot, that he would take suggestions.
Of course, this benevolent despot has a a very open mind.
Yeah, the very open-minded benevolent despot, right?
I got to take my
theory,
sweatshirt
hence
off.
the word theory.
Yeah, dude, it's like like I think capitalism is great. You know, capitalistic democracy is great. You know, it's
says the entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. But it's you know, there's challenges to it. You know, there's definitely challenges to it, and it's definitely not you know, like there's perfect. And I like, to your point, I think like the Constitution was written on purpose. Our forefathers knew that. They knew that based on all the, you know, the way that they had seen other governments. You know, these guys were fucking smart motherfuckers. Thomas Jefferson, those were smart, fucking smart people who cared and truly wanted to create the best nation possible, you know, based on what they had seen. So they did make it so things couldn't be changed overnight.
And
right.
They two-tiered the system. So we've got our federal government, we've got our state level. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Because what's good for Massachusetts might not be good for Oklahoma, and I'm cool with that. And if the majority of people in a state are supportive of a policy that I oppose, that's an education issue. That's not, I can't go impose my will down there. The majority of the people want that, you know? If I think it's a bad policy, then I need to step up, I need to advocate, and I need to educate. But a lot of people just go scream to the federal government, do this. Gay marriage is a great example. Gay marriage should be legal everywhere, hands down. It's not even a conversation to me. People want to marry each other and be in love. They should be in love with whoever they want. But it's not a federal power. The federal government does not have the right to create laws about the home, about family life. That's a state level thing. We're screaming to the federal government, and then we force them to overreach their power and create new precedent to have overreaching power and supersede the states and chip away at states' rights. That's a bigger problem for me. Granted, if somebody I loved who was in a homosexual relationship in a state that it wasn't legal, my heart would be breaking. But then you got to get off your ass and go and advocate and educate and make change. You know, that should be the impetus. I don't think it should be a more powerful federal government forcing things down people's throat. The founding fathers, I'm obviously going to nerd out because I'm a lawyer, but like the Constitution is one of the most beautiful documents ever written. It's super thoughtful. It looked hundreds of years in advance. They didn't think about drones and, you know, transportation being what it is and all those kinds of things, but they did try to make the best document ever for the people, and it works really well. The fact that we're, 230 or 40 years in with this document, and it's done pretty well.
Yeah, it's held up.
We got to change some things, of course.
For sure, and there's a ways to change things, and I agree with you, like in terms of like, you know, giving powers to the states. That it is tough. Then and people can move and can move their state, I guess, if they want, if they don't like that ideology, you know, and that's not always like I think that's a privileged thing to say.
It's privilege, right? Yeah, I've always said that too. I'm like, if you don't like the policies of a state, then move. It's like, yeah, but my grandmother who's infirm is here and I need to take care of her. Like,
it's such a privilege thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I
you should be able to be
that.
free, like, you know, and that's why it's like with certain things, I hear you, but like with the gay marriage thing, guess what, dude? If the federal government hadn't come in, half the states would, you know, Alabama's not letting, you know, homosexuals get married. Sorry.
I think a lot of the problem that stems from this, not to interject on you guys, but it's that too many times in our history, states' rights has been an argument for bigotry. Yeah. And that's why you are so eloquent when you put it, and I absolutely love the idea of states' rights. Mm-hmm. It's just when it's masked over bigotry that I'm like, I don't think you understand what states' rights means when you use it to hurt people.
And that's the problem, Jacob, right? It's we need to fight the bigotry in the policy, not necessarily jam federal policy down states' throats.
Yeah.
Again,
you're right,
folks. I don't know the solutions. I'm not trying to offend anybody. Just spitballing, and like, this is the way that our government was supposed to be set up, and I have a reverence for it. So.
Same, and that's why we're having the conversation. That's what this is about. It's about having dialogue, so we can say like, hey, this is what are we talking about here? What's the, you know, is this the best idea? Should we try this? Is it the people we're going to generate? Hopefully, this generates conversation amongst, you know, the listeners of this show, and that they can have an opinion on it in a nice, respectful way.
Yeah, oppose me, please. I mean,
I think one of the most important things too of the actual document of the Constitution that somehow got lost along the way, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was either Jefferson. No, it was Jefferson who wanted to or had implemented that it was supposed to be rewritten like every 7 or 9 years.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be scrapped and started over because of, like, that's what I mean by the brilliance of their forethought. Yeah. I hope that was what you were implying, is that he literally was like, we can't keep this stagnant. It has to change constantly because we understand that times change.
There's a big hole in there that permits amendments, you know? But to pass an amendment to now we've let the document get too reverent, where now it's like gospel. It's like, no, but they wouldn't want that. There's a hilarious joke. I think it's from one of Joe Rogan's bits, But it's like if the forefathers could, or like if Jefferson got teleported in a time machine to now, and we were like, look, we still got your document, blah, blah. He's like, you guys didn't write any new shit. What the fuck?
No, for real, man. That's what it would be like. And I didn't know that was a thing that was in there, but like, that's what I talk about all the time. Like, this stuff is like, we're smart enough and we're at the point now where we can be perpetually studying and updating this stuff. And you do need to have like cornerstones. You don't want to be changing your government every 7 to 9 years. Yep. You know, for sure, this document that is supposed to be this guiding light, but updating it and learning how to grow with it. And like, you know, it's just I think the states' rights thing is, there's an example of it like going on the, you know, against like what you guys are saying from the bigotry standpoint, that, you know, they won't actually, you know, the abortion thing right now. Like the state rights is that, you know, a lot of these places where they thought abortion was going to go right through, people are, you know, women and the advocacy groups are educating people, and they're voting to make the decisions to make them more, you know, more pro-life, pro-abortion, or pro-life.
Yeah,
what do you call it?
Just a choice, right?
Choice, exactly. Pro-choice, exactly. Pro-choice, and you know, I always get confused when they say like anti-abortion rights or like
too many labels, man. How about just labels. People should have bodily autonomy?
People should be able to have bodily autonomy, exactly. And so, like, I know that when, you know, everyone was stressed out about Roe versus Wade. But it's, you know, the states are seeming to, and not everywhere, because there's some places right now where it's like a 6-week ban, and that's BS. But there's places where, you know, and that's just my ideology. Maybe I don't know. The states' rights have people are all worried about that, and maybe they don't need to be worried about it, because the states are going to do the right things in most places.
I think we've been impressed.
Yeah, we've been impressed by it.
Well, because of hardworking people, hardworking advocates, and people sticking up and using their voice. I live in Massachusetts. Was never a concern of mine. You know, it was a concern of mine that people are being marginalized and not having the same access to healthcare, you know, in other states. But I never needed to speak up to change my state's policy. It's pretty well entrenched. I think like the day after that ruling came out, Massachusetts governor was like, "We're passing a law, that pretty much codifies Roe versus Wade in Massachusetts." You know. And maybe even goes further. And I know that tickles people, but you know, I'm kind of a John Stuart Millsian kind of freedom guy, where if you live in your bubble of freedom, and if you want to do crazy shit inside that bubble, as long as you're not popping other people's bubble, I really don't care.
Radical self-expression, freedom of radicals. You know.
And then that gets weird, right? Because people are going to make fetus arguments. They're humans. People are going to say that, like, I think that drugs, you should do whatever drugs you want in your little bubble of freedom. But when you're doing insane self-harm, you might not be forcing heroin on your mother, but you're popping her bubble by ruining her life. Yeah. You know, and disappointing her. You're burdening her healthcare system. So are you popping bubbles? It gets way more difficult than like, hey, I want to smoke a joint in my bubble and you shouldn't care. Right. That's an easy one.
Speaking of that, like, and speaking of the federal government and everything that we got going on here, like, that it's, you know, this is a policy that most people have always wanted. Besides like the stigmatization, you know, the negative stigma around it, we know now that this is something that everybody wants. The majority of people want cannabis to be legal. But that's not even something that we're even really considering at a federal level.
Not even talking about it. We're talking about, so there's been awesome news federally in cannabis over the last 3 months or so. We just had my law firm just had our cannabis conference. Steve was there. And we had our, you know, fear mongering on, you know, in the last year, very like, what's going to happen to the cannabis markets? Stocks are plummeting, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, this federal news definitely kind of, you know, my partner used, I want to get all the names right. Dorothy, the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow coming out of the woods. Just coming out of the woods, holding hands and being thrilled. And that's like the cannabis industry now, because we've got this good news. We'll see what happens, right? Nothing's passed. But rescheduling, I think, would be a great thing. Legalization, I don't really care too much about. It's legal in the states that I hang out in. But rescheduling, we would take care of a lot of those issues that operators have to face. You know, I'm sure. I mean, I don't.
Is that the good news you're talking about? Is that rescheduling is going to happen?
Rescheduling is probably going to happen in our lifetime.
I've heard that it's already been drafted, and it's. Yeah. And maybe you told me that it's already been drafted, and you know, or someone told me recently that they're ready to go. You know, with the rescheduling, and they've sent it to they've already sent it to DEA, and DEA is going to say yes. You know.
I mean, they can start using their budget to do, you know, real drug enforcement,
Yeah.
stopping cannabis is not a big deal.
It can't exactly. Yeah, it's definitely not a big deal. Go solve the fentanyl
I
problem.
think it should not be on a schedule at all, but fine, right? I look at it as a plant. I look at it as a flower, and you don't regulate marigolds, so why are we regulating cannabis? But I get that they're a little bit different. However, you can trip pretty hard on morning glory seeds. And those are not regulated at all. You know
Really?
this?
No.
Oh, shit. This is what we did as kids. It was really fun.
Morning glory seeds.
So you can buy packs of morning glory seeds at Ocean State Job Lot for like 50 cents. And there's like 3 kinds. I had a Sherpa for this. I wasn't just like shooting at the hip. You ever go to arrowwood.com? Were you an arrowwood.com kind of guy?
No.
Jacob? No. It was like the drug archives. It was like the Reddit. And this existed I was on this in high school. And it would just be like people would go and they'd log their experiences. They'd be like, mushrooms, I weigh 180 pounds. I had 3.5 grams of mushrooms at 6 p.m. And then they would just like write about it. So you could get ideas. And then
what
this is how
called?
I prepared them. Arrowwood, EROWID.com. I used to just read the stories. It'd be so fun. And there's a couple kinds of morning glory seeds. I only remember the word flying saucer, but there's some other ones. You can go and you buy some packs. We like to trip hard, so we'd get like 6 or 7 packs. My mom's probably going to listen to this podcast. They're coated in mercury because they know that you can trip on it. It has LSA, it has lysergic acid in it.
Okay.
But the mercury comes off with just warm water and soap. So you put the seeds in. I haven't done this in a long time, but you put it in there and you stir it around and the mercury gets off. And then you strain your seeds, you rinse them, and you can do a couple different things. A coffee grinder is the best way to do it, but we used to put them in socks and just beat them with rocks until they were powder. But the coffee grinder is the best way to do it. Turn it into powder, and you can either put it in OJ or some vitamin C drink and drink the whole thing down, seeds and all. Or you can put it in cold water overnight, and then you can strain it and drink like earthy water. I've done both ways. 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. Amazing psychedelic experience. Amazing psychedelic experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I've had some of my best trips.
Morning glory seeds.
Yeah.
Wow.
On some LSA.
That's so funny. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that was the case.
You got to have weird friends.
Yeah.
To like the fact that this even came to me. Just when my friends are like, we're doing this. And I was at the age where I was like, I'm doing whatever.
Yeah.
I remember being in the woods and we had our arms out on some tree trunks and I could like feel the whole forest pulse. Could I? I don't know. It was a good time though.
Yeah, dude. I that's how I wasn't quite like that in high school, but then when I was in college, I had those. That's when I started to experience mushrooms and started to experience these DMT for the first time. I remember doing DMT for the first time and just being like, this is wild. This is wild that I had that people talk about this thing like as it's such a a negative thing, because the experience was fine. It was super short and like that, but like the way that I felt afterwards, I was like, damn, I feel juiced up for and I was doing all this research. I was looking up the half-life of all this stuff because I'm like, this has to be out of my system, but I feel like I'm having benefit from this a month later. And so that was the same thing with psilocybin, same type of deal. So it's like, learning about some of the, and then some, I think that at some point, likely being in pharmacy school, there was probably some funky chemicals, going around.
There's probably 1,000 ways that you could have tripped.
1,000, exactly, right.
You're too busy learning what you needed to, but
right.
That was just an aside. Love LSA. Do not eat morning glory seeds. Nobody should eat morning glory seeds.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it, guys.
But yeah, so if we reschedule cannabis, that's a good victory. It would, 280E. I'm sure it's been said on your podcast 1,000 times, but legally operating cannabis businesses cannot make the same business deductions in their taxes as every other non-cannabis legally operating business, and because of that, they have to they get credited with income they never experience, and they pay heavy taxes. It's awful. That'll go away because it won't be Schedule 1 anymore. It'll achieve some of the things the Safer Banking Act is going to achieve by opening up the capital markets. I believe they'll be able to, the public companies will be able to trade on New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, which right now public cannabis companies trade on the OTX and the Canadian Stock Exchange. You can't. It's gray. We were talking about the gray earlier. But pretty much nobody's going public on U.S.-backed stock exchanges because of federal illegality. So that'll open up, and then you can raise money publicly. right? I mean, that's going to be it's going to access to the capital markets, but then access to the debt markets with federally chartered banks who refuse to work with cannabis companies now. It's going to be a big boon for the economy. And I like rescheduling more than legalization. We've had this conversation, Steve. You know my stance on this. I like that the cannabis industries live in one state, would live within the boundaries of one state and have an incredible amount of uniqueness because of that. Like the main and mass markets couldn't be more different, and we're 45 minutes away from each other, you know? And I think that's beautiful. If we allow it to be legalized and interstate commerce won't be illegal anymore, and you can just ship amazing Cali bud to Massachusetts, and what's going to happen to all my cultivator friends in Massachusetts who make amazing product, and just maybe they can compete, maybe they can't. Maybe Massachusetts cannabis will still have a market. I don't know. But I'd rather them for sure still have a market. So we've talked about federal legalization, but putting in safeguards to preserve a hometown feel to the industry, a state feel to the industry.
Exactly. You have to do that. Like, just because people have, at least at first, people have so much stake in the game, and there's so much that it would just crush the industry if you went, and it would create this monopolistic practice where the industry would really get really gross pretty quickly, I think.
Real fast. I mean, we already are seeing consolidation, and I'm not anti-MSO by any means. A lot of our clients are MSOs. While some MSOs definitely have that mentality of, I'm just going to chew you up, I'm going to undercut your price at wholesale and then get more market share and then jack my prices up, these kinds of things. Not everyone's like that. A lot of them are really passionate cannabis industry participants who just want to make more money and have a bigger, grow a business, right? It's not a crime to want to grow your business.
Yeah, it's not a crime to want to grow your business, just like any other industry should be able to do. And it's not just like, the rescheduling for me, I think it is great. I think it's going to give access to more, the ability to study it more.
Study more, yeah.
And that's going to be really great. I am super curious about what will happen with like the pharmaceutical companies, and to see what type of, if they try to, there's a spray, there's a CBD spray and a THC spray that's commercially available in Europe and in Canada, and it's not commercially available here because it just doesn't have a market. And I'm curious if that the rescheduling, even though it's still federally illegal, will cause some of these bigger pharmaceutical companies, someone who would actually be able to turn the market on and actually be able to get this product that it's commercially available and people are actually using it, and it's not just kind of niche like some of the other cannabis THC products that are pharmaceuticals already, like a Marinol. You would I just think that I think that this will allow for some of them to want to get in and want to play, and I will see.
What do you think about that?
I think you should probably leave I don't know if you can. It's tough because like if somebody's going to be served by it, then maybe it's good.
That's the Steve I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like if I know like people like my dad, maybe it's just the education, but we got to get them to go. I know that there's a Yellow Labs has a spray, that's the same exact spray as what's in this, in this pharmaceutical product that would, eventually get patented and be controlled. And it's like, I would rather somebody go and, I know that it's already being tested and it's regulated and it's safe enough for patients and it's in the market already. So that would be great if you could get the person to just go do that. But there's a certain percentage of the population who may not ever be able to get that treatment because they want to go through, the proper channels, going to see a doctor or whatever. So that to have that available for them as well could be a good thing, as long as it didn't impede the people like Yellow Labs who are trying to do the spray or.
It's scary, and I think in the same vein. If we have rescheduling, I don't know if this is definitely will be something in rescheduling, but more likely if we did legalization. But pharmaceutical companies would go on an acquisition frenzy. There are a lot of cannabis operators who would love to exit the business and get their money back and then some or whatever. If pharma companies could start collecting little operators in every state and get into the cannabis business that way, they could shove cash at these people. Right? And then all of a sudden you've got a publicly traded pharmacy company owning cannabis. You got pre-recorded sounds over there, Jacob? Do you have throwing up? Like that?
No, but I almost did.
That scares the shit out of me because I trust the cannabis industry to who is currently in charge, which are passionate people, whether they are business passionate or cannabis passionate. I like to think it's like 70% cannabis passionate, 30% business passionate with some overlap. They're doing a good job, you know. The industry is not perfect, but I know that like Coast Cannabis is one of my favorite products, and they care about everything they make. Like they care about everything they make. That's cool. I get to eat that.
Yeah, that's like what's gonna make it better. It's like I just try to think of like one of these pharmaceutical companies coming in and taking over like the Dr. BeeWell honey process and to see how much they would butcher it. And like how quickly they would butcher it, just
overnight.
because overnight, just because of the way that they like. I've been in those rooms, and I've been a part of those conversations, and I know the way those people think, and it's not the same way that people in cannabis necessarily think. To the tune of like it just like local honey would be gone, would be getting like the rice syrup, the next day.
They wouldn't follow your tenet either of using honey from wherever.
That's what I'm saying.
Locally sourced honey.
Yeah, right.
If it's a Massachusetts product, it's going to be Massachusetts honey. If it's in Maine, it's going to be Maine honey. If you're going to expand to other states, it's going to be that honey.
Right.
Because there's a lot of health benefits from having the honey that's in your ecosystem. They're going to have a honey farm in one state.
Mix half of it with rice syrup.
Yeah, and sell it everywhere.
And so, and that's the thing, dude. It's like it is really gross, and I didn't even like think about that like coming in and actually starting to operate the being operators like them, the pharmaceutical companies. I was only thinking of them trying to like create products and get in that way.
They're going to go acquisition crazy because the infrastructure is already there. It's a turnkey purchase, right?
Yeah.
You buy it and you're producing stuff the next day. There are people.
You have the lab set up. You have the kitchen set up, so they can go in.
You
there.
You don't need to hire people. Keep the same staff and pay
Literally.
them more. Like the founders who used to be making $80K a year because they couldn't pay themselves that much because they weren't generating that much. Pay them $300K a year. Keep them around to run it. It's going to be easy. It could happen overnight. It's scary. But there are a lot of people. I mean, I'm a corporate attorney. I'm a transactional attorney. We do M&A. We do debt finance. We do venture capital, whatever. There are people in my world that would be really excited about that happening because we'd have a bunch of deals to do. We'd have a bunch of deals to document, make a bunch of legal fees off these deals. It's not where I want to see the cannabis industry go. I love working, but I'm hoping that there'll be M&A, VC, and debt work in our current industry. There is. That's what I do on a daily basis. Maybe it's not billions of dollars deals yet, but it could be with some changes, right? Rescheduling or descheduling, fix 280E, and let cannabis companies bank.
Yeah, let them be. Just let even the playing field. Even the playing field, like why, the 280E thing, like, and, like Gus was saying, just so you can't deduct, things from your business, in the same manner that you would if you were running an alcohol distribution company. It's like, alcohol's fucking killing people, dude, crazy. It's, it's drunk driving is like, one of the number top fives, drunk, ways of death. And it's like, never mind all the liver cirrhosis and all the problems that come from alcohol. And it's like, this is, they get to write all their shit off.
Like every mistake I've ever made in my life.
Right.
Is
alcohol related.
I've made not only good decisions on cannabis, but I've never made really bad decisions on cannabis. Made dumb ones or eaten way too much Taco Bell, you don't get high and go, no, I'm gonna cost this woman at the bar for sure. I'm more like, I should probably go home.
Yeah, man, and it's like this like mindset of like the negative stigma behind it, and it's like that's kind of what's funny about law, and what I think is like just funny about like how things happen in this country, like that, like from my understanding, like cannabis was because it was psychoactive, and they also because of hemp, and they want to make hemp illegal, and I heard I've read about like nylon rope. Which was controlled by DuPont, a chemical company. They lobbied against hemp big time because, to make it so that they couldn't.
William Randolph Hearst, last podcast of yours I listened to, you brought him up. I mean, he didn't want hemp to take over his paper mills, So lobbied against it. It's so pathetic. You ever seen Pineapple Express? One of the greatest movies of all time.
Yes, yes.
And when they decided to make it illegal, just that, I love that. Like, that's how comical to me it is. Like, that's what I picture happening is Bill Hader or whoever it was just poof, 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 poof. You know what I think about your dog and pony shit? They're like, no, item 9 is illegal. Like, that's how it got here. You guys didn't put any thought into it. You got no studies. You just were like, this is dangerous to my interests.
Dangerous to my interests. Get it the fuck out of here.
And there's been rebel warriors ever since, baby.
Dude, that's really what it is, and that's who we want to continue to steward steward this.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's like the people who we want in charge, man. We need it. We need it to be the people who have been here, who are the one who have true stake in it, not the pharmaceutical companies.
If you haven't bought cannabis from a stranger in a parking lot in your life, I don't want you stewarding this industry.
Yes. That's it. What do we call it? What do we call it, Jacob?
That's a giddy up.
That's a giddy up, baby. I love it. It's the institutional knowledge that like people can bring from being in the in this space. Like you just don't what like if you weren't part. I get it now. You needed the influx of people who were passionate about the business, the 30%, to take it to this level, because the cannabis people, they were busy doing cannabis and they didn't know how to. They weren't worried about scaling business.
A lot of money,
and not a lot of them had a ton of money. So you needed that part of it to come in. But once you got that marriage, you've seen what's happening. This industry, and you wouldn't call it overnight, but in the, you look at Massachusetts, you look at Maine, and in a 3 to 5 year period, you have this beautiful booming economy that can be continuously lifted up if we do things the right way, and we kind of release some of these, the handcuffs, some of the guardrails that have been on it.
Yep. No, it's crazy.
That's it. That's it. And two, it'll just make it safer so we can study it more. And then we can talk about it more. We can say like, hey, dude, we just found out that, that cannabis, if you put it on your, if you're doing this during a surgery, and you do this with cannabis, it's going to create this outcome, something that we never would have studied before, and you can have all these off-label indications that we're going to find out that we will get to actually study. And then we will get to, bring into, like, the last thing I want to say about this would be able to bring it into the payer structure. Maybe, like, I don't necessarily agree with the third-party payer structure. I think insurance is a lot of bullshit a lot of the time, and health insurance it needs to be fixed. It needs to be a better system than what we have. But it's being able to get your insurance, your cannabis to be covered by your insurance. That maybe is a possibility, and that, I don't think that that's a bad thing. You're
going to have hitmen at your house tonight from Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah.
And Harvard Pilgrim.
They're
want us to cover what?
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to cover nothing. You're trying to add something to the coverage?
I'm trying to cover nothing, and then two, like, by, getting cannabis. But you want to know what? Maybe you'd get healthier people. So maybe they would have, I'd advocate, say, hey guys, so you're going to get healthier people.
It'll cost you less in the long run.
Cost you less in the long run. Exactly. You're going to have less people that are having, more severe, mental health outcomes, because they've been able to get a prescription for cannabis, and they've been able to help themselves. They've been able to get some sleep. They've been working on their anxiety, their PTSD.
They've been having boardroom meetings with their internal family system and bring it all together. Yeah. No, we can only hope.
We can only hope, man. We can only hope. Where can the people find you if they'd like to?
If they need me, yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Gustav Stickley. I'm an attorney at Burns Levinson in Boston. I live in Cambridge. I'm always around town. I'm happy to chat with anybody at any time, and if you need legal needs, see what I can do.
Yeah, open to those conversations that just spring up, like we're talking about. You got to give those time so that you might meet someone on the street, say, hey, I heard you on the Dr. BeeWell podcast, and then boom, that relationship goes. Next thing you know, you're texting that guy on Saturday night. That person said, hey, can you hang out?
I waited 2 days, so I feel like this text is merited. I think you're really cool.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, Gus, it's been so awesome. It's been a long time coming. It's been so awesome to have you on the show. I hope that this is something that we can do in the future. This has been super informative, for myself. I know that the audience is gonna, is definitely gonna love it. Thank you guys so much for listening to us today. If you need us, you know where to reach us. And until next time, baby, giddy up.
Giddy up.